In this episode of Camp Nowhere, there are words of passion that are not suitable for little ears. Please listen with caution. Making friends can be really difficult as an adult. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not an expert on making friends, but I can say that my life has been characterized by my need to make friends quickly. Literally my entire life. So maybe I should just give you a couple of my super quick friendship credentials. So I've been traveling full time now for 9.5 years, and I'm constantly in new places where I don't know a single person. And before that, I was an Army brat, and I grew up moving nearly every single year. There was actually a period of time where I went to a new school every single year for 9 years in a row. All of this to say, I'm skilled at the art of making friends quickly because it was only a matter of time and has continued to only be a matter of time before I have to pick up and move along. The reason why I bring this up as a topic is that I frequently get asked how we make friends and then get community fulfillment when we are both nowhere and everywhere all at the same time. And I think it's a fantastic question. I think that in this day and age, we as a human race are living in a time where we are both equal parts the most connected we have ever been, while also feeling the most lonely we've ever felt. I just think that somewhere along the way, we've lost our innate ability to connect with one another. But I do think it can be kind of overwhelming to know where to start. And so thankfully, I do have some practice in this category. Where to meet people. I believe that choosing the right place that you go to meet people can single-handedly increase your odds more than just about any other factor when it comes to meeting people that you're potentially compatible with as a friend. This is how I like to look at it. What are you passionate about? I always love to start with a location in which passions exist. So, do you like climbing? Then go to the climbing gym to meet people to climb with. If you like hiking or running, go join a hiking or a running club. Great place to meet people. Do you like art? Go to a gallery opening or even a drink and draw event. If you like traveling, go on a group trip. Being in a place where your passions will naturally be in alignment with the other people in attendance is always going to be your best bet for making new friends. And I do want to use an example here, and it's going on a group trip if you like traveling. Owen, my husband, and I, we have hosted a few group trips now. One went to Peru, one went to Patagonia, and the other one went to Alaska. And when we first decided to do these group trips, we had a lot of reservations about the process as a whole. Neither one of us had ever been on a group trip before, and so we didn't really know what we were offering, if I'm being honest about it, and we truly had no idea who, if anyone, would sign up for such a thing. And as we neared the start of our first group trip, which went to Peru, we were incredibly nervous. We had put our work out into the world for a long time, and we just didn't really know who was on the other end of the line listening. So we flew halfway around the world to Peru, and as all of these people, 16 people that we didn't know, started to show up for the start of this trip, it very quickly became obvious to myself and my husband Owen was just that it felt like every single person who came on this trip was my long-lost cousin that I've never met before. The connection was instantaneous. And I think that's something that was so interesting is that on paper, each one of the people that came on this trip were incredibly different. But the underlying theme was that we were all incredibly passionate about the world and learning about the world through its people and its food and its history. And all of these ideas is what brought us together. So that connection was just so instant. And in fact, this is how we met our friend Brent, who is actually in episode 2 of our series Meant to Be. What's up, Brent, if you ever hear this? So yeah, it's just like crazy to think of all of these strangers showing up on the other side of the world and so instantly feeling connected to one another that when that trip was over, we were devastated. But the thing that's so amazing is the connection was so deep and immediate that most of that group has now been to a wedding for two of the people who were on that trip. We have visited with and seen most of the people that came on that trip since then. For a long time, I was surprised by how many friends it felt like we walked away from that experience with. But now that we've done 3 of these group trips, the same thing happens literally every single time. And I think I've just come to realize that we all have similar passions. We're wildly different people, but the interests and what we care about and what we love is the same. And that is what connects us. All this to say, I just think it's important to be very real with yourself about what it is that you personally are passionate about, and making sure that you go to the places where other people have those same passions. It will make your connections with those people instant and easy and very natural. And as an added bonus, you'll never run out of things to talk about. The first impression. It's legitimately hard to know where to start with a person that you're meeting for the first time. And I think that when I meet somebody for the first time, my approach kind of consists of 2 parts. I'm always trying to find common ground with a person. And then I'm also trying to make them laugh. I find that when you're looking for common ground, it'll always give you something to banter about while you're getting to know each other. And then if you're trying to make somebody laugh at the same time, it's incredibly disarming when you get somebody to laugh. And I think it's also a great way to figure out what somebody's sense of humor is. And I do believe that having a similar sense of humor is a building block for a strong friendship. We will circle back to that a little bit later. But I just think that it's always important to bring your charm to the first conversation that you have with somebody. And laughter in general is just such an easy way to get to people's hearts and bring joy, so to speak, to the conversation. When looking for common ground with somebody, I do like to come, I'm going to put this word in quotes, armed with a few questions to ask people that are not the usual ones. And I say armed, I just think it's important to have those questions ready because obviously you could need to use them in a moment's notice. But these usual questions that I'm trying to avoid are, where are you from? What do you do for work? People can answer those questions in their sleep. They do not need to think about it. And a lot of times they don't really care about those things and they're not passionate about it. Again, I think it's always boiling down to this idea of we're trying to figure out what other people are passionate about. I like to go for questions that make people think instead. These are a few of my personal favorite icebreaker questions. What do you do for fun? If you could be any type of tree, what type of tree would it be and why? If you could choose only one environment to live in for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? What was your favorite subject in school? Do you still enjoy that subject? You can endlessly tailor these questions to the right scenario, but I just think it's good to have your go-to questions that you can pull out of your pocket at a moment's notice. And I think that what I love most about asking people completely random questions, in addition to making people think, is that you can really learn something about them, not only by what they respond, but also how they respond. Be yourself. When I say be yourself, I mean that with my whole ass heart. When you're meeting new people, you have to be yourself in every sense of the word. You are not doing anyone any favors by putting on a front or being inauthentic in any way, shape, or form. This is for a lot of reasons. You're not going to make a genuine connection because you're likely not putting out the actual or factual information or how you feel with this new person. Being inauthentic is not sustainable. Frankly, it's also exhausting. And ain't nobody got time for that. And I think that when you present your most authentic self, it is the way to most quickly get to the bottom if you are compatible as friends. So being yourself right out the gate is important because we're looking for real, genuine connections with people that we can genuinely be ourselves around. Okay, this brings me to a very important example. Okay, quick story time. Back in 2012, Owen and I hit the road for 6 months. It was actually the trip that led us to the full-time traveling that we're doing now. But back then, we traveled with a cooler to keep all of our food cold. But as the ice melted, it routinely drowned our veggies, leaked into jars, and cost us what felt like a small fortune in ruined food. And on top of all of that, we had to buy a new bag of ice every few days. The process was equal parts frustrating, exhausting, and expensive. Thankfully, we now have a Dometic CFX5, which isn't just a cooler. It's a powered fridge and freezer that keeps food fresh, drinks ice cold, thankfully without the hassle of ice. The Dometic CFX5 line comes in a number of sizes to fit into any vehicle or camper. It's rugged, it's road ready, and adventure tested by me and so many other travelers. Stay out longer and eat better with Dometic. If you enjoy traveling and storytelling about traveling, maybe you'll be interested in our latest travel series, Meant to Be. The 6-part series follows our journey through Western Canada and the Barrier Islands as we check off our final bucket list destinations in North America. I don't want to give away too much, but I can say if you're listening to this podcast and you find some of the themes that we explore interesting, something tells me that you'll enjoy the series. You can watch Meant to Be over on our YouTube channel or on Patreon. Our Patreon community gets to watch episodes 1 week early and has access to a prologue episode for the series, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff too. You can find all the details for both of those shows in the show notes of this episode, and I hope you enjoy. I have to share with you how our first meeting went with our dear friends Carissa and Lindberg of Gone Dirtin'. Lindberg was on a previous episode of the podcast, is an incredible human, and has been my friend for a very long time. But this is how we met. We had been communicating through the internet. I'm just going to put that in quotes. And we're interested in the event that we are ever in the same place at the same time, having the ability to meet up and actually getting to meet one another. And it happened to be that we were all in Vegas for an automotive event. So we decided to meet up that day and walk around together so we could also get to know each other. One of the first things that I noticed about Lindberg was that he was unapologetically himself. And since we're all friends here, I feel like I just have to tell you what happened. We, within minutes of being together, decided to go get something from a food truck. And I do believe that we were standing near a hot dog truck, and I do believe that Lindberg made a dick joke. That is, I hate to say it, I hate to admit it in a very public way. You know what? I have a very rudimentary sense of humor, and I was here for it. After he made this joke, I remember turning to him and putting my hand on his shoulder. And like I said, we had just met. And I looked him in the eye and I said, I just met you and I love you. And I think that he was taken back by that comment, but I think that I just loved how unapologetically he was himself. And it's actually one of my favorite things about him in general is that he doesn't change who he is for anyone. And I think that he has demonstrated on a few occasions, and it's something that we've greatly discussed between the two of us, is just that if you put your most authentic version of yourself forward, you will very quickly know who is your friend and who is not your friend. And it just saves everybody time and energy, so to speak. And it's totally okay. Not everybody is made to be friends with everybody else. But it is truly one of the things that I admire about him most. And I will say, I did find out after the fact, Carissa said that she asked him to dial it back a little bit when we first met because she was really hoping that we would turn out to be friends. And I do believe that she said she was afraid that he was going to scare us off. But I'm glad that he was himself that day because I think that it was exactly what I personally needed to see to realize that we were going to be really good friends. And that has turned out to absolutely be the case. On the subject of being yourself, this is a very natural segue into our next topic. Be honest with how you feel. Do you remember when you were younger, you would ask people, or like other kids actually, very point blank, can we be friends? I gotta be honest with you, that is a habit that I actually never got out of. To this day, I still say that. I know that sounds ridiculous and cheesy, but it's honest and it's disarming. And I found that when you're upfront with people about how you really feel, people just feel like they can connect with you faster on a deeper level. So I think it's always very important to be upfront with people about how you feel. And I do have some suggestions on like some more specific things that I recommend you share your feelings about, which also sounds cheesy. But before we get there, I also just want to say that this is actually a personal policy of mine that it's not just for friends or trying to make friends. It's something that I want to do with every person that I come in contact with, ever. If I think something about them that I feel is nice or a compliment that they may want to hear, I always try to let that person know. So, here are a few things that I recommend when it comes to sharing your feelings with people that you care about or want to be friends with. If you think a compliment about someone and it happens to just pop into your mind, you have to tell them. If you think of someone when you are not with them, let them know that you're thinking about them. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to send a carrier pigeon or even a letter. You can just send them a text and say, hey, I was thinking about you. People just like to know that they're being thought of. Tell people when you're proud of them, even for simple things. If you feel it, you should share it. I have told perfect strangers that I have struck up a conversation with, when they did something that I admired, I told them that I was proud of them because I just think that it's important to honor and tell people when they're doing something awesome. Tell people if you genuinely admire them or inspired by them in any way. This is another thing that I do to any person that I come in contact with, whether or not I know them. I just, as a person who's received compliments, words of encouragement or admiration from people I don't know, either on the internet or in person, it feels incredibly good. And I gotta let you in on a little secret. It feels good to receive those kinds of things from other people, but I honestly feel like it might even feel even better to be on the giving side of that coin. The friendship incubator. The fastest way I've ever known for a friendship to incubate, and I'm using that term because I couldn't think of anything else, but to turn a fledgling relationship / friendship into something a little bit more potent or meaningful is by doing something that puts all parties involved outside of their comfort zone. So I'm going to share what some of those things could be, and these are going to be things that I have experienced personally, so they're going to be very specific in the branding for the types of things that they are, but I'm hoping that it'll kind of give you some ideas that are more applicable for your life. So in my case, that would be doing something outside with somebody, like going on a hike, going for a climb, a backpacking trip, going on a group trip, etc., etc. But I think that you get the picture. I found that doing these types of experiences with other like-minded people is the best way to fast track your friendship. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why they have the ability to do that. But I think that when you're both outside of your comfort zone, your attention is put on to exactly what you are doing, which is being together, and there's no outside noise. It's just you, the other person or persons having this experience together. Being out of your comfort zone has a way of making you feel very present and free of the distractions of the outside world. And so it allows you just to exist together. I also think in instances when you're supporting one another or having the opportunity to cheer one another on, it breaks down these barriers that sometimes people come to new relationships with. And it feels like you can kind of get to the meat of who somebody is a lot faster. I know that these kinds of instances are maybe not readily available all the time, but I guess what I'm saying is if you're really looking to meet somebody or to find your people, I think that if you can kind of keep your eye out for instances where, you will be stepping outside of your comfort zone, potentially they are as well. I think any instances where your phone is not present, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but to just truly step away from your day-to-day life and outside distractions, to just be present with one another is always going to be a great way to get to know one another. I can't say that I know the meaning of life, but in recent years, I've come to believe that it might exist somewhere in our deep friendships. To both give and receive support, share in the ups and downs of life, it just makes everything feel so much more meaningful. I think that everyone deserves to have a strong support system and people that they can share their passions with. We're more connected than ever before, but it also feels like we're as lonely as we've ever been and in need of real, meaningful connections. I hope that some of these things might help you go out into the world and find your people, but if I could leave you with one more piece of tiny advice, it would be that I found if you lead with your heart into the world, you'd be kind of amazed at what and who opens up to you. Thank you so much for listening. Now go make some friends.